In early 2025, the familiar waters between the US and Mexico changed dramatically. What was once a tranquil stretch of blue, marked only by fishing boats and the occasional Coast Guard cutter, suddenly became the stage for a show of force that no one in these border towns could have anticipated. The US Navy deployed warships, sleek, gray destroyers, along the southern maritime border, a sight never before seen in these coastal communities. Their imposing silhouettes cut through the morning mist, sending a clear message to anyone watching from the shore. The rules had changed overnight. This was no routine patrol. The destroyers moved with purpose, their crews on high alert, scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty, as residents and local fishermen watched the warships glide past, wondering what might come next. It was a bold move by the Trump administration, signaling a new era, one where the border was no longer just a line on a map, but a military frontier. The decision was announced with fanfare in Washington, but its impact was felt most keenly along the water's edge, where the presence of armed vessels changed the daily rhythm of life. The Coast Guard, long the main maritime law enforcer, suddenly found itself joined by guided missile destroyers bristling with advanced weaponry. The partnership was unprecedented, blending the Coast Guard's local expertise with the Navy's overwhelming firepower, and raising questions about the future of border security. Why send warships usually reserved for global hotspots to California and Texas? For many, the answer was unclear, and speculation ran wild. Was this a response to a specific threat, or a calculated show of strength meant to deter would-be adversaries? The answer, at least officially, was a sweeping new national security strategy. Behind closed doors, officials debated the risks and rewards, weighing the need for deterrence against the potential for escalation. This deployment transforms border management into a matter of national defense, projecting American strength and reshaping the debate over immigration and military roles. The border, once a place of commerce and migration, now bristled with the technology and might of the world's most powerful navy. The story of these warships is about power, policy, and perception, playing out in real time on the high seas. As the sun set behind the steel hulls, one thing was clear: the border would never look the same again. At the heart of this strategy are two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, USS Gravely and USS Spruance. The Gravely, a 509-foot vessel with over 300 sailors, now patrols the Gulf of Mexico after a high-profile combat tour in the Middle East. The Spruance, fresh from its own overseas deployment, guards the Pacific coast. These ships are built for war, tracking missiles, launching tomahawks, and defending carrier groups. Their advanced radar and combat systems are designed for state-level threats, not small-time smugglers. Deploying them for border security is like using a surgical laser for a simple task, raising questions about necessity and intent. Their presence sends a clear message: this is not just about more boats but about military-grade power at the border. The Gravely and Spruance now stand as sentinels, transforming maritime surveillance and serving as visible deterrents. This deployment wasn't a Navy initiative, it came straight from the Oval Office. In January 2025, President Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, issuing an executive order that bypassed normal procedures. The order reframed the border as a national crisis, demanding military involvement for 100% operational control. The Secretary of Defense was authorized to deploy military assets in support of Homeland Security, blending military defense with law enforcement. The administration argued that threats at sea, smuggling, terrorism, weapons, required a military response. This marked a major expansion of the military's domestic role, with destroyers now patrolling for immigration and crime. The move militarizes the maritime border, reflecting a belief that strong borders require unapologetic military force. It's a decisive shift, with the Navy now enforcing an immigration and anti-crime agenda. The Navy's mission in these waters is broad and multifaceted, extending far beyond simply stopping illegal immigration or patrolling the border. According to U.S. Northern Command, the destroyers are deployed to counter a wide spectrum of maritime threats, both known and emerging. Their visible presence is designed to deter seaborne migration attempts, using advanced surveillance technology, radar, sensors, and real-time intelligence, to spot and discourage risky crossings before they even begin. But that's just one part of the mission. Another critical objective is to escalate the fight against powerful drug cartels, leveraging radar, drones, and coordinated patrols to track smugglers as they attempt to move narcotics by sea. The Navy works to intercept illegal shipments before they can reach American shores, disrupting criminal networks and protecting communities. These ships also play a vital role in monitoring for terrorism and weapons trafficking, closing off potential avenues for attack, and ensuring that dangerous materials don't slip through undetected. But beyond these tactical objectives, there's a larger message at play: the projection of American power and unwavering resolve on the world stage, signaling to both allies and adversaries that the U.S. is committed to defending its borders and interests with military might. This show of force is meant to deter not just criminals and traffickers, but also to send a clear, unmistakable message to the entire region: the United States is vigilant and prepared. The deployment of these destroyers marks a new era in border security, blending traditional defense with modern technology and strategy. In this way, the destroyers serve as both a powerful tool and a potent symbol of a more assertive, comprehensive border policy. This operation is a joint effort, blending Navy muscle with Coast Guard law enforcement. Navy destroyers lack authority to board or arrest, so Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment (LEDET) teams ride along, launching from the warships to make arrests. This partnership combines military reach with legal legitimacy, creating a seamless chain from detection to apprehension. While this model has worked in counter-drug ops abroad, its use directly on the U.S. border is new. On land, nearly 10,000 active-duty troops, including a Stryker brigade, reinforce the border, showing a holistic approach. U.S. Northern Command coordinates all elements: sea, land, and air, ensuring real-time information sharing. The goal: an integrated security network with Navy, Army, and Customs agents working as one. It's a unified push for total operational control of the border. The arrival of U.S. warships off the Mexican coast had the potential to ignite a major diplomatic crisis between the two neighboring countries. In the past, such a show of military force so close to national borders might have led to heightened tensions, angry rhetoric, or even a standoff. But this time, the situation unfolded differently, calmly, and with careful calculation on both sides. President Claudia Sheinbaum's administration was notified well in advance of the U.S. deployment. This crucial step allowed both governments to coordinate their messaging, manage public perception, and prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. Behind closed doors, diplomats worked quickly to ensure that the narrative remained one of cooperation, not confrontation. In public statements, Sheinbaum downplayed the significance of the U.S. naval presence, emphasizing that the ships were operating strictly in international waters and posed no direct threat to Mexican sovereignty or territorial integrity. Her measured tone helped to reassure the Mexican public and avoid inflaming nationalist sentiment. At the same time, Mexico responded with its own show of resolve, deploying additional troops and security forces to the border region. Officials cited the ongoing fight against drug trafficking and organized crime as the primary reason for the increased military presence, signaling that Mexico was taking its own security seriously. This move was more than just a practical response, it was a subtle but clear assertion of sovereignty. By policing its own territory and ramping up border security, Mexico demonstrated both its willingness to cooperate with the U.S. and its determination to remain in control of its own affairs. The response reflects a delicate balance, maintaining vital economic ties and open channels of communication with the United States, while also protecting national dignity and independence. Trade, security, and diplomacy are all intertwined in this complex relationship. By publicly acknowledging the U.S. deployment and launching its own operations, Mexico walks a diplomatic tightrope, carefully navigating between cooperation and self-assertion, partnership and pride. In the end, it's a tacit acceptance of new regional realities, paired with a quiet but firm insistence on Mexico's own role in shaping the security landscape of North America. The deployment has ignited fierce debate in the U.S. Critics, including former military officials, question the need, pointing out that maritime crossings are low and the Coast Guard is capable. They argue that using billion-dollar warships for border patrol is wasteful and largely performative, aimed at domestic politics rather than real threats. There are concerns about readiness, destroyers pulled from global hotspots may lose their edge, and crews risk burnout. The mission also tests legal boundaries, blurring the line between military and civilian roles. Critics warn this sets a dangerous precedent, normalizing military force for domestic policy. The controversy is about more than ships. It's about strategy, resources, and the principles guiding American power. The naval deployment is just one part of a broader, assertive strategy. In a symbolic move, President Trump renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America in all official U.S. documents, reinforcing American dominance. The administration links border security to regional priorities, especially the Panama Canal, arguing that instability in Central America threatens this vital waterway. The U.S. is conducting joint military exercises with Panama, strengthening canal security and regional ties. Another controversial step, building new immigration detention centers on military bases, further intertwining defense and immigration enforcement. Critics say this militarizes a humanitarian issue, turning bases into de facto internment camps. Together, these moves reveal a deeply integrated strategy: warships, new names, and military-backed detention, all part of a larger vision. The border mission is just the visible tip of a sweeping, military-driven approach to regional security. Sending Navy warships to the border has far-reaching consequences. For the U.S., it sets a precedent for military involvement in domestic affairs, raising questions about civil liberties and the military's traditional role. For Mexico, it creates constant pressure and could strain cooperation, pushing leaders to seek new alliances. Across Latin America, some see it as a crackdown on crime, others fear a return to gunboat diplomacy. This could complicate U.S. efforts on issues like trade, climate, and democracy. The destroyers are more than a tactic. They're symbols of a shift toward militarized unilateral policy. The effects will ripple for years, shaping trade, migration, and power dynamics in the Americas. Ultimately, this is about redrawing lines of power in a region facing profound change.